Mr. President, First Lady, members of Congress, secretaries, members of the Oireachtas, social partners, guests, ladies and gentlemen. Today marks another milestone in the journey of partnership between the peoples of Ireland and the United States. Mr. President and First Lady, we are honoured that you've once again visited us. Gathered here today are men and women from the many strands of Irish life who contribute so much to building a better Ireland. At local and national level, they work together to advance agreed aims in the economic and social spheres. And over the past 10 years, Ireland has been transformed by this process. Economically, socially, and indeed politically, the change has been dramatic. There now exists a widespread acceptance that growing a small economy and creating an equitable society requires a pooling of energies in the pursuit of shared goals. And at the heart of social partnership and our process and social partnership in Ireland is respect for difference. Its accommodation requires compromise. And it can fairly be said that over the past 10 years, all sides, government, employers, trade unions, farming interests, and community and voluntary organisations have gained significantly and collectively from the simple concept of give and take. But we realise that not everyone has benefited from our economic success. The challenge of tackling social exclusion is at the heart of our partnership process at national level. It's the focus for a dynamic local partnership process, pooling the commitment of the social partners, the public agencies, and the communities themselves. Mr. President, partnership has yielded many benefits for Irish people, and perhaps no more dramatic than in the area of employment creation. In this regard, US firms have made a vital contribution. They represent Ireland's most important source of foreign direct investment, bringing with them new technologies, new manufacturing techniques, as well as new management competences. We provide the incentives and the educated and adaptable workforce, which works confidently in this modern world of rapid change. American companies here now dominate in key sectors such as electronics and information technology, in pharmaceuticals and healthcare, in financial services and teleservices. And the 500 or so US subsidiaries already in Ireland employ over 74,000 people and account for the lion's share of the foreign-owned sector's exports. Indeed, one commentator has recently said that the Celtic tiger is in part an American tiger with a green face. I will not try to dwell on that comparison too much. Mr. President, I know that your visit to Omagh was difficult. This morning, I've heard you express from the bottom of your heart your feelings about the terrible tragedy and the massacre of decent people on a Saturday afternoon who were just going about the carnival atmosphere that was in Omagh that day. But I know too that your presence there is deeply appreciated by that town of grieving families. The United States too has suffered much from the appalling and indiscriminate actions of terrorist groups, and in that regard our two countries share a sad and heartbreaking legacy. No words of mine can adequately convey the sense of sorrow and outrage generated by that cruel bomb attack in Omagh. But I make a pledge here today that no actions of any organisation will quench the Good Friday candle of peace. The British, Irish and United States governments are rock solid in our shared commitment and determination. Mr. President, I deeply appreciate how keenly you have engaged yourself in Irish affairs. And both you and your envoys, Senator George Mitchell and Ambassador Jean Kennedy-Smith, have made a vital difference over all the past years. I also want to convey here today with your deep gratitude to the many organisations and individuals who through many dark days crossed the divides to promote understanding, to advance just causes, and to stem the tide of political and sectarian violence. And many of the people that are gathered here today have worked tirelessly and courageously in that regard. I know that they remain committed as ever to playing their part in building a new future, and they deserve our undying gratitude. Partnership, political, civic, and social, is an integral part of the Good Friday Agreement. Mr. President, one absolutely reliable constant throughout our search for agreement and peace has been you yourself and your administration. From the joint declaration to the ceasefires and through to the Good Friday Agreement, the helping hand of the United States was always there in the hour of need, and there were many such hours, dark hours. Few Irish families do not have at least one relative in the United States, and it is that human link which copper fastens forever the bonds of friendship between us. Happily, however, the waves of economic emigration from our shores have now been calmed to a mere ripple, a ripple of choice and not of dire necessity as the past. And over many years, the Irish academic community has developed strong links with the United States. And of course, here is one location, the Royal College of Surgeons. And many of our most accomplished students and lecturers have spent time in American institutions and returned home to make an immense contribution to the development of higher education in this country. The government has decided to take this further by agreeing to endow a permanent scholarship scheme for the best American postgraduate students to attend courses in this country. Similar to the long-standing Rhodes Scholarship Scheme through which you, Mr. President, studied at Oxford, the scholarships will bring worldwide students from the United States into world-class universities. And the scheme will be administered by the US-Ireland Alliance in Washington, and it's intended that significant private funds will also be contributed. And as a lasting monument to his contribution to the agreed peaceful future of this island, the scheme will be known as the George Mitchell Scholarships. Young people are central to building understanding between all the people who share this island. And yesterday, Mr. President, you announced your support for a new programme called Project Citizen, which will bring together schools and youth groups as well as their leaders. This will be a collaborative programme, and we, for our part, will be allocating £1 million to its work over the next few years. In addition, the Department of Education and Science will play an active role in developing and assisting the programme, and I know that the Secretary and the Minister met on these matters this morning. I'm pleased also to announce that we will also be involving ourselves in the Irish Festival of the Millennium Project in Washington in the year 2000. Mr. President, Mrs. Clinton, past generations dreamt of an Ireland at peace with itself, an island where people of goodwill from all traditions and religions and outlooks and talents would build a nation together in harmony. And we are now making that dream a reality with regard to Northern Ireland, with regard to our European neighbours, and of course in the context of Irish social partnership, as symbolised by this great gathering. And in that context, President, the words of your predecessor, Abraham Lincoln, are particularly appropriate. With malice toward none, with charity for all, with firmness in the right, as God gives us to see the right, let us strive on to finish the work we are in. Ireland is now a confident place. We look forward in hope, cherishing all the best of the past and building together upon our achievements. And be it in the pursuit of economic goals or in the consolidation of the peace process in Northern Ireland, I know that the United States will walk in partnership with us all the way. And for that, Mr. President and First Lady, we are deeply grateful. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Taoiseach, Celia. Ladies and gentlemen, Hillary and I and all of our American delegation are delighted to be here. I've been looking out in the crowd and I see some Americans who have swelled the ranks even since I arrived in Ireland, and anytime we can pad your crowd, Taoiseach, we want to do that. I'd like to thank the Royal College of Surgeons for making it possible for us to be here and for setting a standard for international excellence. I know there are now students from over 40 nations here at this distinguished institution. If you would permit, before I get into my prepared remarks, I think that for the benefit of the Americans here, and because it's my only chance to talk to the press, I would like to make just a couple of comments on the terrible tragedy of the crashing of Swiss Air Flight 111. The victims, their families, their friends are very much in our thoughts and prayers. A very large number of those victims were American citizens, but also a large number were Europeans, and if you've been reading about it, you know that. It now appears that there were no survivors in what is the worst tragedy in the history of Swiss Air with its very fine record. I have been fully briefed on the extensive efforts underway to recover the victims and to uncover what happened, and we will continue to do whatever we can to support the truly extraordinary efforts of the Canadian authorities, and I want to thank them for what they have done. Just for right now, I would like to ask all of you in your own way, if we could, just to take a moment to reflect in silence on this tragedy and on any senseless loss of life, and ask that their families, the people who were killed, be strengthened in this moment. Thank you very much. Amen. Thank you. Let me say to all of you, it's great to be back in Dublin. Even though there's a little rain in the air today, it's always bright and sunny for me here. The day that we were in College Green in 1995 will go down for me as one of the great days of my presidency, and indeed one of the great days of my life. But these days have been good as well, working to cement the peace process, and I can't say enough about the role of the Taoiseach in making this Irish peace process come to fruition. I want to say a little more about it later in specific terms as we look ahead, but I just want to say to all of you, you can be very proud of his leadership as well as your own overwhelming vote for peace a few months ago. I'd also like to thank Ireland for setting a good example by building bridges to other nations, by being such an open economy, by encouraging business ventures from around the world, and by working together here at home. We were talking before we came in about this whole concept of social partners and how all the elements of Irish society have worked together to give you what is, I believe, the highest growth rate in Europe now, of any country in Europe, because you have worked together to draw out the strengths of every element of this society and to minimize conflict. And all I can say is I hope there will be more of this in the years ahead. I hope that success will whet your appetite for working together instead of causing, as success sometimes does, people to forget what brought them to the point of success. Because the Irish story is a truly astonishing thing that I believe can be a model for nations large and small throughout the world. There has literally never been a better time, I don't suppose, to be Irish because of the economic success, because of the renaissance in writing, filmmaking, because of what so many people are doing in so many ways to advance the cause of peace. Of course, for me, your overwhelming vote for peace and your constant leadership for the peace process over the last several years are the most important things. And I would like to thank you on behalf of the American people for what you have done. I can also say that to Prime Minister Ahern, the peace literally would not have happened, in my judgment, if it hadn't been for him. He led a campaign sometimes under great personal duress. His pleas for peace began early in his service. He has been fair and open. He has been terrifically effective in working with Prime Minister Blair and all the parties in both communities. There are many people from many backgrounds who deserve a lot of credit for this peace, including George Mitchell, whose name was mentioned earlier, but none more than Bertie Ahern, and I thank him for that. The last time I saw the Taoiseach, I believe, was on St. Patrick's Day in Washington. He always comes there and gives me my shamrocks and puts me in a good frame of mind. And then we always have a celebration at the White House in the evening, and everybody's in a good frame of mind. But we were especially happy this St. Patrick's Day because the sense of peace was in the air. We thought there was a real possibility for all that has happened to occur. We now know from the tragedy of Omagh and for those 3 small boys that were killed that there will be those who test the peace, who do not want to move into tomorrow, who are literally trapped in the patterns, the hatreds, the mindset of yesterday. I think the most important thing that Hillary and I saw in Omagh yesterday was that even the people who have suffered the most from the testers of the peace don't want to give in to them. They don't want to give in. They don't want to go back. They want to summon their strength and courage and lean on their friends and neighbors and go forward. So the most important thing I can say to you here today is I hope you will continue to be a model for the world in responsible citizenship. Ireland, there hasn't been a day in the last 40 years that some citizen of this great country has not been abroad in another land working for the cause of peace. I hope you will continue to be a model of an open economy where people work together instead of fight with each other to increase wealth, employment, opportunity, and social harmony. And I hope you will continue to labor for peace here, because if we can complete this peace process, as I said to the citizens of Armagh yesterday, you can't imagine what it will enable the United States to do in trying to stand up for peace in other parts of the world where people have fought over their religious, their racial, their ethnic, their tribal differences. I can always then say, no, 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 look at Ireland, when they tell me it can't be done. So please know that the rest of the world has an enormous stake in the way your society conducts itself, in your economic success, in your social harmony, and in your passion for peace. So far, you are doing much better than any of the rest of us could ever have dreamed or hoped for, and the world is in your debt. The United States is proud of our Irish ties, and I am personally extremely grateful for what has been done here in these last few years. Thank you very, very much.